You're listening to the Listing a Week podcast, a podcast that teaches real estate agents how to generate a listing a week and grow their business. My name is Todd Tramonte, and I'm a Dallas, Texas-based real estate broker, author, radio host, team leader, and real estate coach. And I'm sitting down with my team of agents to talk about how they generate a listing a week or more, the lessons they've learned, and how they differentiate in a noisy real estate industry, and how you can too. Welcome, folks, to another episode of the Listing a Week podcast. We've got most of the usual crew here today. We got Ian Daniels, John Kanika, and Jeremy Payne maybe jumping in with us. We always try to have a mix of folks that can help illustrate how absolutely possible it is for you to generate another listing a week in your business. If you want more, you can get it. If you don't want that many, that's fine too. But Ian's here helping run the team, making sure that we have all the listings we can handle. John's out there selling them every day, converting them, picking up those clients, taking great care of them, and generating amazing success stories. Jeremy's doing the same, and he may join us here in a minute. But I wanted to talk this week about a question that I think, I know, we used to get a lot. Hopefully we're getting less and less. But around this concept of getting a listing a week, when people start to pay attention and read the newsletter or listen to the podcast or watch some of our videos or come to an event where I may speak or something like that, a lot of times, the feedback is generally really great. Once people kind of get over that mental hurdle, they get really excited. But occasionally we get this question that sounds something like, hey, getting a listing a week sounds great, but everything that you're talking about is about what I do after I have the listing, right? So we talk a lot in the office about what we're doing with already having a bunch of listings and adding more. And I understand that there's people out there that kind of, that may frustrate you because you're on the early stage of this where you're trying to get some of those first listings or you're trying to rebuild a listing inventory. And I totally respect that. And I think we should speak directly to that. So Ian, you and I were having a conversation recently about this. Why don't you just kind of throw in your thoughts? I'll kind of try to summarize mine, and then we'll bring some of the guys in that are out there doing this stuff in the streets every day.
Yeah, I mean, everything that we're talking through is it's an incredible opportunity to explain to people that when you implement the modules, when you implement this system, yes, you are talking a lot of times about what you're going to be doing when you're under contract, like when you sign them as a client. Uh-huh. But the power of being able to explain to somebody what I'm going to do for you when we work together is the key. Like that's the conversion piece. It's allowing you can get in front of people, but having the ability to then convert that person to when you're battling against other agents or discounted people or whatever that looks like in your market, to be able to use all of this and explain the value and what you're going to be able to do, that's what's allowing you to essentially get more listings. Right. And so if you listen to the podcast for very long, or if you've heard a bunch of the other episodes, you've probably heard us address the issue of leads. And nearly every time that topic comes up, we sort of pass it and keep going because we say leads really are not the problem. Now, we've done entire episodes on that, so go back and look. But the point is, there are plenty of leads. Some are better than others, and certainly if you have a bigger budget, you can go after some more targeted ones, but every expired, every for sale by owner, virtually every homeowner is a potential lead. So there are plenty of people to talk to. The challenge for most agents is getting face-to-face with them, getting an appointment, converting, and what we're talking about, whether you're following our exact system or not, or whether you're picking and choosing and taking some tidbits and just trying to kind of get over the mental hurdle that you can, the fact of the matter is, a lot of what we're going to do for a client once we have them is also really valuable languaging and communication for how to get that client, right? To say to them, hey, in a world where there's 1.4 million agents and about 1.39 million of them, if not more, are just sort of going along to get along, getting a license, asking for your business because you know them, because they live down the block, because they're on the PTA, because they coach the kids with you or whatever. There's very little differentiation. But if you can differentiate yourself and the value you can deliver by saying, look,
I have a proprietary system that's been proven in multiple markets all over the country, or however you might want to communicate that. We're going to provide a pre-inspection plan. We're going to create scarcity and add urgency and negotiate in a completely different way. That becomes the conversion tool for you to get at least a listing a week. So if John or Jeremy wants to chime in on that and just talk about how that's been a powerful tool for you, I think that would go a long way for people to see what we're going to do for a client once we have them is also a great communication tool for how we can get these clients in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, typically after meeting with them and going through the steps that we do and all how we're gonna take the listing and make it and get over the average and under the amount of time is by showing them all the steps we're gonna do, and by walking through each one of those, they seem to be always just like, wow, okay, that sounds great. And as we're talking and going through, they're saying that makes a lot of sense. Okay, asking them. And so by the end, when we've gone through all the steps and shown it to them all, they're usually blown away by the information and saying, okay, great, let's get this done, let's get it going.
Right, and again, I think the big, sexy, exciting thing in our industry right now is like super cool, innovative digital marketing and stuff, right? Listen, I'm all for that. That's the world I live in most of the day when I'm working. But I think what people need to hear that are excited or terrified about getting more listings is that's not the hardest part right now, right? So regardless of what your lead source is, again, we've talked about that at length. The power is in being able to set yourself apart from other agents. And what you're saying right now is when you're able to communicate to someone that you have a plan, like our plan, or any plan, to be honest, that's going to set you apart and help you get the client. Then if you can actually execute on that plan well, you can build the track record and market your track record, right? Which for us is over the average price and under the average time. Right now we're about 8% over the average price and about twice as fast as the average time. You can start to add some of those details as you have a track record. But to answer that question, why are you always talking about what you're going to do once you have a client when I'm still trying to figure out how to get the client? It's not the whole answer, but it's a big piece of the answer is we're telling those potential clients what we can actually do for them. And they're blown away, like you just said.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking with an agent yesterday, and I honestly don't even know where the agent was based around the country, but this was her question. Well, how does this one particular piece help me? She was talking about, we were discussing pre-inspections.
Yeah.
And I took 15 minutes with her, and we just talked through the scripts that go along with it, the power of it, how it saves people money, how it's an incredible marketing tool, how you can use it at open houses.
Yeah.
And I just talked for like 10 straight minutes and just basically went through what you would all say in the consultation with people.
And her response was,
"Oh, yeah, okay, get it."
and the reason, just to set it up more, she had bought we did a little sale where we offered one of our modules super cheap, like for $49. And she got one of the modules and she never even got into it. She was like, oh, I don't think this is what I need. I'm actually trying to get more listings, and this is just telling me what to do once I have them. In 10 minutes, like Ian said, he just showed her, 20 different ways that just that one piece would actually help her get more listings and take great care of them. And her response at the end was like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it wasn't a lacking in energy. It was kind of like, oh, I kind of feel dumb. And I don't want to expose her any more than we already have, but the fact of the matter is they're one and the same. So I know Jeremy's got a thought on it, and then I'll probably wrap us up. We don't need to say a whole lot more on this other than to say don't do any more than you need to do. When you can do one thing well and it can serve your clients well and get you clients well, great, keep it efficient.
One of the most beneficial things I've noticed when I'm out meeting with clients is finding out before I even talk about what we do, proving to them that I have a plan. I want to find out what I want them to answer. I want them to prove my point before I do. So I ask them, especially when I know they've sold houses before, or if they've met other agents for the sale of this upcoming one that I'm marketing myself for, and I'll say, hey, what was those other agents' marketing plans? And I'm like 27 for 27 on the answer being, put it online, put a sign in the yard. I think one of them did an open house, and that's it. And that is, at least in our market right now, that is the common and almost every single time answer. And so I then kind of say, okay, awesome. And then I keep moving on. Yeah. And so then as I start walking through our marketing plan, I can go back, instead of telling them,
Right.
here's me being different, I can let them say, you've already told me before you knew anything, this is what a marketing plan is to everyone else you've ever dealt
Right.
with. Now, would you agree that this marketing plan that I'm showing you is night and day different? Like, yes, we will put a sign in the yard. Yes,
Right.
we will put it on the MLS, but that is by far the smallest piece of our marketing.
Right.
That is not marketing at all. That's just called doing my job because I have a license.
Right.
Everything else, the other 7 steps, because that's not even really a step,
Right.
is what we're going to do to add value. And then instead of me trying to sell them on telling them that all other agents don't do it right, they have already convinced themselves these guys are different. And that
Yeah.
little switch creates more of a trust, in my opinion, and it causes them to come to that conclusion without me having to really even sell them on the fact that ours is different.
Right, and you nailed it. Everything you're talking about is conversion. It's getting the listing. None of that is actually serving the active client, but it's the same
It's
system.
talking about all the things
Right.
we will do once they're an active client, like they are already signed, a little, assumptive close, but what it is causing them to want to be
Right.
in our system, in our team, so that they get that level of
Right,
service.
and of course, the longer you do it, the better you get, right? So John, when he does that exact same thing, he's able to lean on 5 years of experience. Oh yeah, I've done about 8 or 9 in this neighborhood, and we're averaging this compared to the so you can layer this in, and it only gets better and better and better and better, because you can say, look, I've been doing this for 5 years. I've literally never had that problem. Well, what if this doesn't work? It's always worked. It's worked 300 times, and I'm just one of the people doing this. So if you're listening or you're watching and you're brand new, and you're worried about that track record piece, first of all, just know it does not feel new to Jeremy because he's done a lot quickly. But as far as being on the marketing side, less than a year, right? But the fact of the matter is, first of all, it doesn't matter because he's great at what he does, and his clients don't even ask that question anymore because they can see the confidence and he's got a great track record. But if that's something you're concerned about, take that as an example. Also, you don't need the layers of all that experience and track record. If you can say, look, this is what I'm going to do for you, and you'll only pay me if I do that well. If you're getting paid like most of us do after a close or at a close, then it's a really, really compelling argument. And again, not everybody needs to follow our exact plan. You might be tuning in to look for one little nugget or something, but just remember, one of the most, and this is the main point that I'm making today, one of the most powerful things you can do to convert, to get business, is to tell somebody what you will do for them. What's in it for them? What's the outcome? And then in our business, I do think it's important to kind of do the features and benefits thing. We do it by explaining a proprietary system, because there's a low level of trust in our industry. Everyone is saying, I'll get you these outcomes. But to Jeremy's point, 0 out of 20, the last 27 had a plan to do it. Or they had a 2-point plan, MLS and hope, or MLS plus sign. So when you're saying pre-inspection, staging, photography, marketing 3 different ways, creating a scarcity and urgency over and above what the natural market offers, our negotiation plan and an execution plan that involves my entire team. Oh, and those are just the main points. People tend to sink back in their chair and just go, wow, okay, I'll shut up, trust you, and let's let this thing ride. Even if, and hopefully they don't, but even if they had a tiny bit of skepticism left, they're like, we will see, but I'm going this route no matter what. So if you're tuning in and you want more detail about how to do it exactly the way we do it, head over to alistingaweek.com, alistingaweek.com, and you can literally get our exact system. You can get an 8-module system of how to do that. If not, you can get some totally free stuff where I interviewed 7 other industry leaders on how they would go about getting a listing a week. That's entirely free. Some paid options there if you want to tap into our whole system or not. But before we wrap up, anybody have final thoughts just on, okay, we don't want to talk always about what we do with a client. We want to talk about how to get a client, and I'm saying it's the same thing. Any final thoughts?
I would agree totally. That's when you get that system out in front of them, they are just blown away, and that's the same in getting them.
Okay, so let me end on a question then. So then would you agree that if there's really one thing, if you want to get more listings and there's one thing you should focus on becoming really, really great at, it would be communicating your system, communicating how you get this done.
Right, communicating exactly the system, how it's going to benefit them, and the difference between, and they will see the difference that others are talking about.
Great. I love it.
with huge confidence.
Yeah.
Be confident in yourself.
Yeah.
You can explain the system perfectly in a horrible way.
Right.
So explain the system perfectly in a confident way.
Right. Okay. So I lied. Let me end on one more question. So I have no experience though. So I haven't done this 200 times. How can you gain that level of confidence and experience?
Role play. Practice it.
Nailed
Use a
it.
teammate, member, spouse, child,
Neighbor.
something,
Yeah.
neighbor to practice the entire consultation, the entire
Yeah.
scripting, where you're going, how to answer questions. Have somebody ask you tough questions. You know, use a friend to come in and know that they're going to play devil's advocate, and then be prepared, because the more you practice, like any professional sport would be a clear example of, the more you practice, the better you're going to be when the actual time comes. And then you can explain that, and you tell your clients. I did this last night when I was over in Grapevine. I told my clients, or the clients that I ended up signing, I said, hey, I role play these things multiple times a week, so that, and I used in this definition, it was more for like negotiating with
the other
another
agent.
agent. But the same thing applies here, right?
Sure.
The more I'm practicing when you don't know I'm practicing and you don't care, and it's practice time, it's not game time,
Yeah.
the better I'm going to be when it comes time. And that's how you're going to do the same thing with an initial consultation.
If you don't have a family member or a friend or anything like that, it's you in the middle of nowhere, take your phone, hit record, and listen to it back.
Yep. No excuse. There literally are no excuses. You will gain confidence as you prove the concept. But if you want to tap into that, if you want some help, if you want to get in a group where that's practiced all the time, head over to alistingaweek.com. We've got some great resources for you there. You can tap into some coaching groups and stuff. But if you don't, trust me, if you don't want to spend any money and you're not ready to do that, go to alistingaweek.com anyway and get some free stuff there that can really help you implement this in your business. Really great stuff. Appreciate you guys. I think we've kind of covered it for today. So we'll catch you on the next one. For more free resources, head over to alistingaweek.com and we'll talk to you on the next one.